Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal, the 7-week journey to thrive using the language of subtle energy. I'm Lisa Bonace, and I'm really looking forward to this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Ellen Meredith and address questions about her upcoming 7-week course. Again, that's called Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal and Thrive, which begins Wednesday, October 28th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. That's never a problem. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Ellen Meredith is an energy medicine practitioner, medical intuitive, conscious channel, teacher, and author. She's been in practice since 1984, helping over 10,000 clients and students across the globe tune into and communicate with their own energies and to hear their inner guidance and heal. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Ellen, who's going to begin our time together by leading us in an opening exercise. Welcome, Ellen. It's so nice to have you with us today.
Well, thanks, Lisa. I'm really happy to be here and really excited to hear what questions people come with. And I do want to show you an energy medicine exercise just to give you a taste of maybe my style of working. But before I do, I want to just say a few words about it. I really believe that we need to be able to communicate with our own being, right? I need to communicate with my body. I need to train my mind to work well with my body. And I need to be able to hear my spirit, hear my wiser self, and whatever guidance is available to me from within. So this whole course is about learning to speak energy, which is your body's language. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing a lot on helping you develop your own energy medicine, your own ways of communicating with your body. I'm not going to expect everyone to do it the way I do it, because communication is very flexible and it's very fluid. And I think that it's such a wonderful medium that we each need to get our hands in there and play. But sometimes I will be teaching you some exercises I've developed and showing you why I do them the way I do them so that you can modify them or work with them your way. But the exercise I wanted to show you today is really good for strengthening your protections or your filters. Right now, there's a lot of junk in the airwaves, and I think we need to be able to protect ourselves a little more from all the incoming flack. I guess it's flack, the toxic information or other people's fears and energies. And it's also really good for strengthening your immune system when there's something like a pandemic going on and you want to just be a little stronger. I'm going to stand up and just back up so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to invite you to stand up and do this with me if you're somewhere where that works out. Okay, so stand up if you can, and if not, do it in your seats and try to do it as much as physically as you can. In other words, you get more benefit from an energy exercise if you actually do it rather than just trying to visualize it with your mind. This is called the SMART filter. Now, around your body, around everyone's body, we have an environment. You've heard it probably referred to as the aura or the biofield. It is like the environment of the earth, and it carries lots of energies that affect the body, just like the weather affects the surface of the earth. So it's kind of nice to have some tools for the care and feeding of this direct environment. Now, one thing about this aura or this energy environment is at the edge, we have something that I call a SMART filter. And this is something you might not have read about in the literature. I just see it or learned about it from my inner teachers. But it's a filter that helps to decide what comes in and what has to stay out. It is part of your immune system. It's part of what I call your gatekeeper. And so what we want to do is we want to reinforce that filter so it's smarter. So it says, okay, keep out the news that isn't useful to me personally, or keep out any viral messages that my body doesn't need or can't interpret. So what you're going to do is to reinforce this SMART filter. Imagine it's like the shell on the egg of your aura all around you, and you don't have to worry about how big your aura is today. It gets bigger and smaller, but with your intention, you can reach the edge. You're going to figure eight towards you and away from you, all the way around. Now, the figure eight is a harmonizing movement, and I'm going to be teaching in my class about all different kinds of movements and gestures and how they speak to the body or to the energy fields. This is one that you may have seen in other systems, a figure eight, and you're just figurating towards and away from you, all around you, and reinforcing that smart filter. And you can put some kind of affirmation in, like, keep that crappy news out and only bring in the information that's to my highest good and best well-being. You can make something up that amplifies those instructions. But because the energies of the body speak a very multidimensional language, I like to use color, because color speaks directly to the body and to the mind and spirit in a way that all those words don't necessarily get through. So I'm going to just figure eight and put a color in all around. And it's a big place. You might have noticed your eggshell is kind of big. If you've been working away while I'm talking, it might be a lot of work. It's okay to invite helpers to come reinforce your smart filter. And I like to invite, fairies, or those Keebler cookie guys, or the UPS guys with their little brown shorts. I like to invite folks who can come and just make it fun. Because if I'm laughing and giggling and imagining something ridiculous, that brings up my radiance, which actually reinforces any efforts I have to define me versus not me. And that's what we're doing. We're just, as we do this smart filter, we're strengthening the filter for sure, but we're also strengthening the differentiation between me and not me. And we're creating harmony so that anything that comes in gets harmonized. Okay, that's called the smart filter. And I encourage you to play with it and see what you want to do to adjust it to make it work even better for you.
Right. Thank you, Ellen. That looks so fun. I'm looking forward to not being pinned to a microphone and trying that one myself. It looks really creative and very customizable. Is that basically what you're shooting for?
Yes, everything I teach is creative and customizable, because it's like language. If you can say something in an interesting way or a boring way, why would you say it in a boring way? If you can create imagery in how you speak that really gives someone a flavor of what you're trying to express, why would you use cliches? So I'm trying to teach people to learn to communicate using energy. I mean, we're going to be having a total immersion experience in the language of energy, but it's not going to be language exercises. It's not going to be a boring class where you memorize verbs and nouns and sentences and then spit them out. It's about tapping into what you already know about communication and about dialoguing, and bring it to the task of dialoguing with your own body, mind, and spirit using their own language.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ellen. We have the rest of our time together to dive into questions for Ellen as we prepare for her upcoming course, Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal and Thrive, which begins Wednesday, October 28th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit energylanguagecourse.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get into some questions. If you have a question for Ellen, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to pass it along. And in the meantime, we just had this question come in response to what you were just saying. What's the difference between intuition, higher guidance, your higher self, and the extended perceptions that you talk about? Like, for example, who are your guides? Are they entities or spirits in the spirit realm?
Okay, well, that's a good question. And what I like to think of is the color spectrum. So you might be able to differentiate between blue and red and green and yellow and orange, but they are all part of light. They are part of the energy spectrum. So when you get to, I'm not sure what all the words were, intuition and what were the words that the person used? Intuition and
higher guidance, your higher self, and extended perceptions.
Right. They're all parts of the same the same expression. There may be different bandwidths within that. I was trained by my inner teachers originally. So I am a conscious channel, and I've been doing it for, 47 years now, I'd say. And so I have learned a lot from that inner wisdom. I don't see them as something out there, some foreign entities that I'm communicating with. I see them as an extension of my wiser self. So in the class, I really work a lot with how to access your wiser self, which is the place where your consciousness meets the collective consciousness. At the level of the wiser self, we are starting to be quite collective, or maybe larger perspective in our consciousness. But your wiser self has access to even greater wisdom that needs to be brought through a filter so that this instrument can perceive it and can work with it. So I don't see them as what's the difference as much as kind of positions in a related set of vibrations or of energetic truths.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. I think that was very helpful. We've also got somebody here wondering, you've worked with Donna Eden in the past, and Jean is wondering, how is your program different from the Eden energy system?
That's a great question. I am trained. I had a practice for about 23 years before I found Donna Eden. And when I found her, I was immediately on a plane going to study with her because I love her work. And I did become certified, an advanced practitioner in her system, and I'm on her faculty. Having said that, I love how the two really come together. To me, they seem almost like English and Irish, in that you can understand each one if you know the other, but they're not quite the same. And I feel that what you're going to learn with me will really enhance anything you know about Eden, and what you'll learn in any Eden programs will greatly expand or enhance what you're going to learn with me. So they're mutually supportive. Donna Eden has focused very much on spelling out an amazing energy anatomy, really looking at all the different energy systems that she can see and teaching us how to work with them, balance them, how they operate. I actually wrote a book called The Language Your Body Speaks that was based on a quote from Donna that energy is the language your body speaks, where I wanted to dive beneath all other modalities, get out of all the jargon and methods and techniques to say, well, how does this language work? If energy is really how my body speaks, am I fluent in it? Can I speak that language so that when I'm talking with my body, I'm speaking her language, not asking her to somehow interpret my English? And so that's kind of was the impulse for developing some of the work that will be in this class. But I've been in practice for 37 years. So what I bring to this class is, work with over 10,000 clients and students and seekers who wanted to learn how to heal themselves, and helping them to find their own way to do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. This next question comes from Celine, who obviously saw the conversation that you had with Stephen Dinan previous to our conversation together. Celine is asking, in the course, will you be teaching us how to test ourselves by ourselves? Because I don't have anybody with me to help with testing.
Okay. In the class, I do teach one or maybe two energy tests because I think that's a good tool to have. But I'm really focusing throughout the class more on how we tune into the energies and understand what they're saying to us. Because I think what happens with a lot of energy medicine modalities, and I love most of them. I mean, I'm really kind of I do love lots and lots of different kinds of modalities, but they often jump too quickly into energy testing, either the muscle testing or something like that, or even machines that tell you what's going on. And I really believe it's useful to be able to just tune in and know what's going on, or figure it out from the cues and the clues, and then maybe use energy testing to validate or give you feedback. So I will be teaching some self-testing methods for sure. You don't have to have anyone there, but it's not focused on investigate and test, investigate and test. Not in this case. I'm trying to really help you build up your own feedback system. Just like when you're having a conversation, you don't go every sentence and look up in the dictionary what all the words mean. You develop your own vocabulary and syntax, and you can express yourself without having to check it against some authority or some validator outside the things that you use every day to say, does that sound true? Does that feel right? Does that match my experience? Etc. So no, that was a long answer to no, you don't need to have a partner there.
All right, thank you. This is from Bo, who's wondering, is it possible to do this work if you're unable to visualize? He says, I see nothing but darkness, sometimes with colors, or I see a black rectangle surrounded by color, or sometimes a neutral light. In other words, he doesn't seem to be able to do it the way you're talking about it.
Well, Bo, you're in luck, because I don't insist that people visualize or even use visual. That's only one of the modalities. And, some people use direct thought. Some use their hearing or sound. They use smell or sense, your everyday senses. And then I teach some extended senses that we have that we're not so aware of. For example, when you're walking through a crowd and you don't run into anyone, we have that radar that we use and we're not always conscious of. So this isn't about mastering a particular skill in order to get a particular result. It's about harnessing your gifts and what you already do well, and then maybe expanding and building on that in terms of expanding your potential. But nothing that I teach rests on mastering this particular skill, because I just don't think life works that way. I mean, someone can go through life not able to visualize a thing and still have a spectacular imagination.
All right, that is good to know. Thank you for that one. This is from somebody on Facebook who's familiar with your work. They would like to know more about the porcupine reactivity.
Okay, so the porcupine reactivity went out in an email from Shift. So if you didn't get that, go look in your box and see where it is. It was just an exercise that I demonstrated. Basically, we have an immune system. Everybody knows that right now in particular. And I call it your gatekeeper. And it's your physical, energetic, emotional, spiritual, and mental immune system. So it keeps the gates of self. It says, this can come in, this has to stay out. This is mine, this is not mine. This is safe, this is not safe. I mean, it just makes logical sense. And I call it the gatekeeper rather than calling it the immune system, because when we use words that are used a lot in other systems, we key into all the literature that goes with it. So there's not such a big literature on gatekeeper as there is on immune system. And I don't want to click people into what their brains are doing with immune system. I want you to learn this notion of I've got this mechanism that keeps the gates of self. So that was the long prelude to say this porcupine reactivity that I teach about is when your gatekeeper feels like there's something invading probably from outside yourself for the most part. And it's like on Star Trek when the Klingons are coming. I don't know if you all watch Star Trek, but they're in a ship, a spaceship, and they're floating around in space. And there's these enemy forms that are called Klingons, and they come after the Starship Enterprise. And when they come, the ship has to put up shields. And all the energy goes to the shields so that the Klingons can't get in. But what happens when the energy is going to the shields is the ship itself goes on brownout. They can't use their replicators, and the air conditioning doesn't work. And, lots of the systems inside don't work. The same thing happens to your body when your gatekeeper is triggered or your flight reactivity is triggered. Lots of energy goes to protect your shields, and things like digestion and breathing and certain other functions shut down. They go on brownout. They still work, but they don't work very well. And you can imagine if you're in reactivity like that all the time, you're going to have health issues. You're going to have digestive problems. You're going to have nervous system imbalance, etc., because you don't feel secure if you don't have enough resources in there to run the ship. So that's what the porcupine reactivity is. And so I teach an exercise to reset it, which is called the porcupine reset. And it's a very simple exercise with a very long explanation.
All right. I always love a good Star Trek analogy, so thank you for sharing that one.
Certainly.
We've got a question here from Rhonda. I know you mentioned a little earlier about chakras, et cetera, that your work doesn't specifically focus on that. But can you talk, what are your thoughts on the aura, the chakra, the energy field, that whole thing?
Okay, so energy moves in patterns. Just like words don't have as much meaning until we form them into phrases or sentences, right? I don't just sit here and say, hand, look, head. If I just sat there and said random words, I wouldn't be communicating, but I'm putting those words into patterns, and those patterns then communicate my meaning. By the same token, we're made of energy. The body's constructed of energy or made of energy. It's fueled by energy, and those energies are organized by energy. So we're this mass of moving, shifting energies, and people who see or perceive energies, I tend to hear them. People who perceive energies have perceived patterns in those energies for ages and ages. So people have seen these swirling patterns, and those are called chakras, and they've seen this kind of field around us, and that's been called the aura. And they've seen these little streams or rivers, and those are called meridians in some traditions, or nadis in some tradition. So traditions that have tried to capture these movements of energy have names for them. And again, it's not that I don't teach them, but I teach you to go and look at how are all the different ways that energy moves in patterns, and how can you work with those patterns for self-healing. So rather than teaching sort of chakra lore, I talk about, well, what happens when you can work with the swirls and influence the swirl, and what does that influence in this larger web of energies that make you up or fuel you or organize you.
All right, thank you for that. Now, because you're talking about healing the body and medical intuition, of course, people are wondering about their own specific ailments. Now, of course, we cannot offer any kind of medical advice. And as you've mentioned, everybody has their own individual stories, so it's going to be different for everybody. But with that said, we've got people asking about their conditions. So let's say, for example, what can somebody who has migraines, how can they ask their body for information about what to do with migraines?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm someone who knows about that because I had migraines every day for 15 years. And what I finally learned was that I had to stop asking, what can I do for migraines? Because migraine is a concept out here. Migraine is something that is a phenomenon that society has detailed, and there's literature, and I tried everything. I really tried everything, and none of it worked for long. I mean, those pills, sometimes they'd work, sometimes part way, but I couldn't get under what was generating them until I asked different questions. I started asking better questions. I stopped asking, what's wrong that's causing these migraines and how can I fix it? And I started to ask other things, such as, what do I need here to be well? What do I need to cultivate in order to get my body to stop screaming at me? And I assume that any symptoms in the body, mind, or spirit are communications. And if they get louder and louder, it's because I'm not getting the message. So how can I get better and better at getting the message so my body gives me a nudge rather than spiraling into a migraine? And that's been very successful for me. I rarely have a migraine now, rarely. And when I do, it's very mild, and I have lots of different tools and techniques to work with it, not because I'm treating migraine, but to work with what's being communicated and how can I lovingly respond, because I've got this relationship I've been building through dialogue with my body's energies. How can I look at what my body's energies right now and respond to them. And of course, what I discovered is migraine's a flag for dozens of things. It's not one thing. So I can't find one answer that got rid of migraine once and for all. But as I started to get a deeper relationship with my own body, because I really wasn't very good at communicating with my body when I started this journey 30 odd years ago, the better I got at it, the more it didn't need to scream with strong symptoms. It could give me a little tweak and I would know to stop and say, hey, what do you need? You know, it's like working with an infant, if you or a young child, like a 2-year-old, where you never listen and say, come on, follow mommy. The kid's going to start tantruming and screaming louder and louder. If you stop and address the kid's needs for safety and what they need, or maybe just redirect their attention to something else, you can often head off a lot of that behavior. And I'm not saying your body's a 2-year-old, but I am saying that we can use everything we know from all parts of life to enter into way more fruitful self-healing and dialogue with our bodies than just what do you do for this, name the disease state. Because, you know, most of you have tried everything. And if you're still asking the question, then we need to change the questions.
Okay, so would that fit with anything like, as I mentioned, we've got a list of a lot of different things that don't seem to necessarily be connected. Like we've got lactose intolerance, anxiety, hormonal imbalance. To most people, those don't seem connected, although hormones and migraines can be. Yeah. How do you dive down into the specifics of what you're dealing with?
Okay, well, what you're doing is you're diving into the specifics of how this web of energies is moving and could move more fruitfully. So you're diving into the specifics of wellness, and as you develop greater resilience, greater balance, greater movement of energy and space for energy to move, and you develop a much more intimate relationship with your gatekeeper, those symptoms melt away. And I've seen it, you know, I'm not just claiming this, I've seen this in thousands and thousands of clients who'd been to every kind of practitioner, they'd done every kind of chemical analysis they could of their problem, but you know, the body speaks 2 languages. It speaks energy and it speaks chemistry. And it's very hard to heal body, mind, and spirit using chemistry, because chemistry really generally just addresses the very physiological parts of it, or surgery, very physiological. But we are an integration of those 3. And so if we can use the energy communications and really construct a healthy self from the ground up, it addresses lots of those different ailments. And it's not that I ignore ailments, but I'm not attacking illness. I'm showing someone or leading someone on a journey to construct wellness. And those of you who've been successful at finally getting rid of this chronic problem have probably learned that that's not the whole picture. I mean, you can not be sick and still not be well. So how do you bring wellness in as perhaps the best medicine of all?
All right, thank you for that. For those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Ellen Meredith, learning about her upcoming course, Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal and Thrive Using the Language of Subtle Energy, which begins Wednesday, October 28th, and you can log on to energylanguagecourse.com for all the details and to register. So let's go ahead and get back into questions. You just mentioned body, mind, spirit, which is wonderful because we're having people asking about the spiritual aspects.
Yes.
And I want to be careful with the language that I'm using because I don't want to use spooky language, but some people feel that there is such a thing as spiritual attack or spiritual disconnection, etc. So if you don't mind, let's talk about that.
Okay, you want to talk about spirit or spiritual attack and spirit, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, let's start with spiritual attack because there is a specific question about that.
Okay. The more you know who you are and the more you can strengthen your energies and how they function by working from the inside out, the less vulnerable you are to what some people call spiritual attack. I think a lot of the things that are called spiritual attack are just really vulnerabilities. You know, if you've got big holes in your aura, then other people's energies can get in and it'll feel like an attack. If you don't have holes in your aura or your field, and you do have a really robust smart filter, and you're pretty savvy about saying no to people who are toxic to you or situations that are toxic, then a lot of those things melt away. And I think that too often we're taught to heal ourselves by starting with the notion that I'm a victim and I'm going to be attacked and I don't have the resources. And that's, you know, I've been there. I had trauma as a child and all of that. But it doesn't get you very far because, you know, we've got autoimmune. We can attack ourselves. So I think that attack model, which is part of conventional medicine, you know, that germs attack us and illnesses attack us and our bodies attack themselves. And that whole notion of attack begs the question of, where do I place myself so I'm not on the battlefield? How do I keep myself and my family as safe as possible? How do I recognize the signals where maybe where I'm living isn't safe and I need to be living somewhere else or living in a different style? There's so much we can do without buying into the attack model. And I think that effective self-healing does require thinking outside the box and questioning some of the ways we're programmed by our society to have fear, to feel vulnerable where we don't need to be vulnerable. If I play my instrument well, even if I'm not a concert pianist, if I play the piano for fun and my family and friends gather around and sing and we're having fun, I don't need to feel attacked by someone who's a concert pianist out there doing it better, nor do I have to feel attacked by the neighbor who says, hey, can you not do it after 11 o'clock because you're keeping me awake? I can feel the celebration of what I am doing and do have, and then work within the boundaries of where I'm bothering the neighbors or where the neighbors are bothering me. And I don't want to deflect the question, but I do think I want to invite the questioner to ask whether the model of attack is getting you what you want. Because it may not be, again, it may not be the best set of questions or the best framework to put on what you're experiencing in order to change it and shift it. Does that answer the question? I don't want to deflect it, but I also don't want to honor that as that's the central truth and how do we deal with it, any more than if I go to a doctor who says, oh, you've got this and that going on chemically and doesn't ask me a single question about my nutrition. I'm going to maybe say, hey, that doctor's not asking the right questions because
So
he or she doesn't know enough to put me into my context and my storyline. He or she is trying to fit me into a storyline that has not helped me in the past.
Okay. Well, so what it sounds like you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that let's say for this specific person who's asking, they feel like they're being attacked by a specific individual. And it sounds like you're saying, look at your broader picture where how you feel like you're under attack just in life in general, as opposed to this one specific incident. Is that accurate?
Well, there's two ways. That's one way to look at it, is look as whether that's a theme across your whole life. And the other is, if you are being attacked, I mean, sometimes we are. I had a sister who bullied me horribly growing up. She was an individual and she attacked me, and it was attack. But the antidote to that is to get allies, to get other people who believe you're wonderful, to get other people who strengthen you energetically, who support you. And, you know, there's other ways to deal with that. You know, if you have to get an injunction against the person, but understand that if you give your energy to that person is attacking me and that's my problem, then you're not looking at what you're doing for allies, what you're doing to strengthen your energies, what you're doing to feel healthy, what you're, you know, people tend to attack vulnerabilities. And if you can strengthen that vulnerability so that it's not so attackable, then you can more or less laugh off the attacks within reason. I mean, if somebody comes in my house with a knife, I'm going to get out the back door. I'm not going to see if I can strengthen my vulnerabilities so that his knife doesn't bother me. So you do have to judge it based on your own situation. But I know that in a lot of spiritual traditions or New Age traditions, there is a whole belief system around attack and how we're so vulnerable to other people's energies. And I think we need to explore that and reframe it for ourselves for a different time, because we are coming into a time where we are very much part of the ecology of life forms, and we have to work with that responsibly. We can't just see everything as a war or a struggle or a me versus them, because it's me and them. I mean, I'm part of them and they're part of me. And I don't want to go any further with that, because then that gets into a whole session for this particular question. But what I'm going to teach in the class is very much about how to unpack situations to find out what your truth is within it, or many truths, and what are good questions to ask to move you out of the same old answers, and to free yourself from some of these things that I've been told, this I've been told, I've got this or that. There's a lot of psychics out there, and I'm a psychic too, so I've probably been telling people things, but they say, I've been told by this psychic that I'm this, that, and the other. And my goal is to say, well, tune in. What's your truth? And to really help people have tools for doing that, to find those truths from within. And once you do that, you may find that some of those concepts fall away, because that's not so much fun to go through life feeling like everything's always about attack. And, I've had people that I felt their energy was attacking me, but they all, when I looked at it, they all kind of were echoes of my sister. So I really had to heal some of the trauma around my sister, and then those people didn't bother me anymore and miraculously stopped attacking me.
All right. Again, thank you so much for addressing that. I know that's kind of off topic, but it's an important question, and I think you gave a really wonderful answer. Thank you. So now we've talked about body and spirit. Let's talk about mind. There's somebody here who's asking, will this work help with emotional issues? Do you even consider emotional issues being a mind problem, for lack of a better word?
Okay, great question. And I want to, right before I answer that, I just want to go back to spirit, because I sort of addressed spirit attack. I'd like to just put out the notion of spirit resources, that we're really each looking for what are the gifts, what are the spirit feeds that are true for you. And we're going to be looking at that in the class a lot, of finding your own spirit feeds, because we're not all alike. We all have different feeds, and that gives us different gifts and different powers. So the mind part of it, the way that I put this together for myself is, if my body's the instrument, my mind is the player, the instrumentalist, the musician, and my spirit is the music of my soul that I want to be playing on this instrument. So in what ways has my mind been trained to support my instrument to be her best, and to also support the music of the soul that I'd like to be playing? And in what ways do I have to kind of retrain my mind to listen to my body and listen to my soul, and maybe let some of those outside voices turn down the volume a little bit, so I can hear what my own construction is, my own construction of self is. Having said that, emotions, in my view, are expressions. They're part of how energy communicates. They're not the whole picture. I mean, energy communicates with sound and music and light and color and rhythm and gesture and movement and sense. All those things I've mentioned in your senses and beyond. But emotions are energetic states that we can move when we enter into energy dialogue. And so I'm not one of the people who thinks that all illness is about blocked emotion, but I do think that a lot of illness has a lot of emotional states or energy states built in, that when we move them, we can shift large portions of that illness and give your body a better chance to self-heal, which is what it's designed to do.
All right, great. So much to talk about here. I'm looking at the clock. We have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I'll go ahead and give a few details about the class itself. Once again, it's called Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal and Thrive, and this is going to be a life-changing 7-week journey with Ellen under her expert guidance, where you'll use all of your senses to develop your own rich, personalized energy medicine vocabulary to communicate with your body in its own language and experience self-healing and deeper well-being. And the 7-week course takes place on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, beginning Wednesday, October 28th. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss any of the teachings. You will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. You also have lifetime access. You can download all of the materials so you have them forever. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving you until November 11th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group where you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Activate Your Body's Miraculous Ability to Heal and Thrive using the language of subtle energy. Boy, that's a mouthful. You get the bonus collection. First, you'll receive a 9-part audio teaching from Ellen entitled Grounding and Taking Root in Multiple Dimensions. Next, you'll get a video teaching with a PDF companion from Ellen called Everyday Divination, Finding Insight Everywhere You Look. And then you'll receive a PDF excerpt from Ellen's groundbreaking book entitled The Turning Wheel of Change, Navigating Personal and Global Shifts. So, wow, that's a lot. Before we get back into it, Ellen, let me ask you, this is a new course for you with Shift. What are you most looking forward to sharing?
I'm most looking forward to just making it fun to learn how to speak energy. And it's not a foreign language. It's not something new. We all spoke it as infants. We all come in knowing the language of energy, and it gets kind of socialized out of us. So I'm really looking forward to awakening people to how they're already speaking energy and using it and building on that, and really building out through experience, through tools that you can play with and change if you want, through energy exercises and explorations, to really understand how wonderful and joyous it is when you can start speaking the lingo and really partner with your body, mind, and spirit in the work of creating you.
All right. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it myself. Here's a question. This is, I was actually wondering about this myself. Can you explain more about holophrases?
Well, I can, although I think I'm going to be teaching about them in one of the modules. I think it's second or third. But I can say very briefly that I have a background in language. I'm a language geek. I've always studied foreign languages. I've studied child development and how we develop language as kids. And when you talk about how young children develop language, when we get our first words, those words are called holophrases because they mean a whole bunch of stuff. So when a little infant says up, 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 they're not just saying a preposition of direction. They're actually saying to mom and dad, hey, pick me up, or put me in the high chair, or I want to look in your face, or I want to be tall like you. That single word communicates a whole bunch of stuff. So when we're developing the language of energy to communicate with our body, we can find some of those gestures or energetic holophrases that allow us to communicate a whole bunch of stuff at once to our consciousness and move energies, even if we have a very limited vocabulary. So it's a way of working with the vocabulary you already have to get a lot of effect from it, to get what you need as you're expanding your ability to maybe make more refined statements. If I feel like crap, if I feel really sick, I don't want to wait 7 weeks or 100 weeks to feel better. I want to feel better on day one. I want to know, what can I do right now with the tools I have right now to start feeling better and to start working with this thing that I'm inhabiting, that I don't quite have the owner's manual for yet. And so that's the approach I take, is what can I do right now, and how can we add to it? But always trying to work with things that don't require a PhD or expertise or studying extended theory to get, just everyday understanding. So I might give you, that's probably the most technical phrase is holophrase, but I've just described it. And most of you have seen a kid and heard that first word and think, oh, right, that means a lot more than just the dictionary definition.
All right, thank you for going into that. This next question is sort of a chicken or the egg kind of ponderance. The question is, does the healing come from the dialogue itself, or does the dialogue point you to what you have to do to heal?
Both. I mean, when you are having a problem with a friend and you have a conversation, the conversation itself creates connection and exchange, hopefully, and respect and a mutuality, an energetic exchange that starts to heal that relationship. But also what you guys discuss and figure out, and the plan you come up with, or the understandings you arrive at, those become maybe a map for where you want to go next in that relationship. And I see healing as very much about having a relationship with your own being, with your own body and mind and spirit, and making that intimate through ongoing dialogue, rather than trying to find the one right answer that's going to fix this big problem that stands in your way of everything else.
All right, great, thanks. Now, here's a question from Tam, who wants to know, what are your thoughts on continual pain?
Oh, I think it's horrible. I don't recommend it. And I'm laughing. I had continual pain. I had 15 years of migraines every single day. So I know how debilitating and just plain yucky it is. And I know that when you're in that state, you can't really think and you can't really apply theories. And sometimes the best medicine is the damn pill that someone gave you, because at least in the moment it helps. So I don't make a lot of rules about pain, but pain is often about energy that's stuck or backed up and needs more space or needs to move. It's sometimes it comes from separation. Like when you cut your finger, it hurts because your skin has separated, and the signals to the brain are, hey, pain, pain, pain. There's a rift in the fabric. So I approach pain in both pragmatic ways of what can you do right now to shift it? Does doing this help break up the headache for me? Or if I put my feet in cold water, does it break up my migraine? So I look at it that way. And then I look in the bigger picture, maybe when the pain is less intense, of how can I build habits that cause the energies to keep moving, that make space for the energies, that weave together that which has been rent asunder, or, split and cut apart. So, I try to, again, teach people how to unpack what's going on with the pain and with the storyline that the pain is part of, so that we can get further than just, here's the pain, how do I treat it? It's more like, here's my body screaming out for help. How can I relate to her maybe differently and get some different results?
Okay. Well, then what about other chronic conditions, like, for example, chronic gut disorder, something that just doesn't seem to go away no matter what you do?
Right. Well, I think the trick with chronic gut disorder is that whenever we focus just on the gut as the problem, we sometimes miss what's really going on. Now, for some gut disorders, getting on really good nutrition will help, or, avoiding something you're allergic to. And there's a whole literature out there, and anyone who asks the question and has the word chronic has probably explored a lot of that. And I think all of it is valuable to a certain place, but you can put all the perfect food on your plate and still eat stress or perfectionism and not eat the energy of nourishment and self-care and receiving, so that you can let go. So I like to teach people how to look at what are the energetics of these different situations, these different illnesses and chronic problems, beyond what they've already learned from the chemistry guys and the chemistry people and the medical people and the nutrition scientists, who are all making a contribution, but maybe aren't looking at your storyline and what your body's saying to you. So if you have 10 different people with chronic gut issues, they're not identical. Those are 10 different energy stories that need to be addressed on their own terms in order to release it. So if you've tried everything and it hasn't released, then stop focusing on the gut and start focusing on your whole energy story differently, and start having a different relationship moment by moment, day by day with your body, to shift not only those painful sensations, but your relationship with how you take the world in and what you do with what you take in. And I know I'm giving complex answers that sound like I'm blowing people off. I'm not. I'm really inviting us to shift the conversation. Ask better questions. Think outside the box, because you've thought your way around that box. You know that box. And you're an expert on your own gut stuff probably by now. So how do we get beyond what we don't know to find ways to use, to learn something different that helps resolve the issue? And I've got lots of stories of people who've done that.
Okay, thank you. Now, the person who sent that question in sent up a follow-up that it looks like it's food allergies. Can allergies be addressed with this work?
Absolutely. Allergies are a function of your gatekeeper. So the more you can befriend the gatekeeper, the more you can calm down her or his reactivity to foods, as well as, avoid them for a while so you can calm everything down. But I used to have tons. I was allergic to almost everything. I went and had one of those tests, and, there were like 5 foods my body could handle. When I healed my gatekeeper and my relationship to my gatekeeper, I now have very few food sensitivities. I can handle almost everything. And I don't have the gut problems I had for many, many, many years. I avoid 1 or 2 things now that still kind of give me problems, but everything else is fine.
All right, interesting. Thank you. Now, related to what you were just saying, we've got a question here from someone who's saying, I have trouble tapping into my wiser self. I get stuck in my ego. What energy exercises can help me with this?
Oh, my class is chock full of them. So I'm not going to jump into the class now, because that's what the class is for. But really, most people who are trying to tap into the wiser self are trying to go right from mind to wiser self. But if you go through the body, you get really easy access. Wiser self likes to meet up in the body as much as possible. And I know there's techniques that, send the consciousness out there to meet wisdom and stuff, and they're wonderful. But if you have trouble, going through the body and going through energy dialogue is a wonderful way to get that wisdom without having to strain.
All right. Well, I've been sort of putting off this question because I didn't know if we wanted to get into it, but what about serious illness? We've got people here asking about cancer. I mean, again, we can't give medical advice, but could you at least address the topic?
Right. Serious illness is a very, very loud scream from the body saying, I need body, mind, and spirit to get on the same page here. I need us to be working together. And I've worked with a lot of people who had stage 4 cancer. I worked with people in the old days. I offered free services to people who had AIDS in my community, because I felt so strongly that they needed other supports besides just what medicine had to offer, which was very little. And I have seen many, many people heal life-threatening and big-name diseases, because you're never healing the disease. You're always healing yourself. And I know that sounds like a platitude, and I don't want it to be a platitude. Whenever we click into the name cancer, all of a sudden we've clicked into this whole field of expectation and this whole field of just prejudice, and then we're battling with all of that. And I learned this from one of my clients who had AIDS, and he came to me and he said, I used to have AIDS and I'm HIV clear now. I'm HIV negative. And this was back when there were no cures, no treatments. This was in the early days when AIDS was a death sentence. And he said, yeah, I've had 3 or 4 negative tests now. I have no symptoms, but I did have full-blown AIDS. I was in the hospital with the pneumonia and everything else. And I said, oh my God, did you tell your doctor? Have you been telling people? What did you do? Well, he used spiritual techniques. He used nutrition. He came home to himself and he said, I don't choose to tell people about it very much, because when I tell them that I had AIDS and I healed it, they tell me I must be mistaken. They tell me, oh, no, you probably got it wrong. You probably still have it, but it's in remission. Or, no, it can't be healed, so you didn't have it in the first place. And he said, I choose not to battle that big field of expectation, all those people and their judgments. I need to live my life as a person who doesn't have AIDS. And I'm telling you, because we're going to do some sessions, I was working with him on deepening some of his spirit, body, mind connection work. But he said, we're not working on my AIDS. We're working on strengthening me. And he was a teacher for me, because I heard that and I thought, right, I don't need to worry about healing specific illnesses. I know a lot of them because I've had a practice for 37 years, and people come through the door with their list of owies, with their list of illnesses. But ultimately, when you stop trying to heal your cancer so much and start focusing on how do I heal me, who and what am I, and how do I make that more whole and more workable, and how do I really harness all my gifts and possibilities and start living each moment and really living it, then you're going to get further with these big name diseases. And it's a leap of faith, but Donna Eden did it with her MS, and she's one of the poster children for you really can heal very serious illness using energy medicine, but the energy medicine isn't treating the illness, it's treating the wellness. It's cultivating the wellness. It's a leap, but it works.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to end. We're just about out of time anyway, and those are beautiful words to wrap this up with. This has been just a fantastic conversation. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your wonderful questions. Once again, activate your body's miraculous ability to heal and thrive using the language of subtle energy begins Wednesday, October 28th. And again, you can visit energylanguagecourse.com to learn more and to register. So, Ellen, before we cut you loose, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Well, that was all kind of complex, and I'm just assuming the viewers are fairly complex thinkers out there. But I just want to say, energy is your first language. It's your mother tongue, and you already know how to speak it in some part of your being. So learning to speak energy is not like learning to speak a foreign language. It's about building on all the ways that you know how to communicate with yourself and expanding that. So we're going to have a lot of fun, and I hope we'll get to laugh a lot and explore things and individualize it so that each of you finds your own relationship to the language your body, mind, and spirit are speaking.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you once again, Ellen. It really has been just a pleasure conversing with you today. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it, Lisa.
Yeah, this really has been fun. I'm looking forward to this class. And once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.